Have you seen Yeti in Alaska? Have you seen any Bigfoot or Sasquatch out there?
I haven't, but I'm aware of people who have, and people do talk about it. And uh, I have a place out in the bush that I'm going to be developing once the snow breaks. Um, but I'll be doing it by hand. There's no road into the place.
Wow.
I have to drag all my crap in there and kind of do it old school, um, which is fine. But my understanding that there's been observations even there. So, yeah, it's part of the conversation here, definitely. And so are UFOs.
Yeah. Oh, well, can I ask another one then?
Oh, sure, sure.
Is there a pyramid underground?
I don't know anything about any of that.
You haven't heard about the pyramid
No, no,
under Alaska.
no, no,
Okay.
no, no. But I'm aware that there's a lot of interesting ideas floating around out there. But what I know is very limited. But yeah, the whole Sasquatch thing, yeah, it's part of the lore around here. Has been even into the native lore.
Definitely.
So there's been, awarenesses and acknowledgments, and there's some pretty good bits of evidence that people have brought in, audio and footprints and such like.
Sorry, the gentlemen, they were brothers at the water.
Yes.
And then the one fellow, Bob or John was
Yeah.
John said that he sees shadows now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. The whole hitchhiker thing.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Okay.
Your awareness, once you're stressed, your brain and everything kind of restructures, depending on the personality type, I would suppose. But what happens is that you start running on wider bandwidth, and that includes your intuitive sense and your psi function, your psi ability. The incident I had in Oakland afterwards, I would have these moments where I knew what people were thinking, what they were going to say.
Really?
I could show them what I was thinking sometimes. And I actually did a demonstration of that with my buddy who was with me during that Oakland incident. And this is a common theme, and it isn't just for UFO stuff either. Combat veterans they get a combat intuition. They have this ability to sense enemy positions and avoid. They know when they're being looked at. This kind of thing. Snipers, they train them big time in this sort of thing. It's called sense making in the military.
Sense making.
It's sort of the next term for remote viewing and psi and intuitive training. So sense making. But I think Time Magazine did an article on it some years ago, 6-7 years ago.
The basal ganglia.
Yeah, yeah. The Nolan's looking at the caudate.
The caudate.
The putamen.
It's
it's kind of the center point where the higher functions are located in the brain. So all of the higher movement, the finer movement, voice, communication, higher thinking, all of that is sort of centrally located where in the center point between the two hemispheres.
If I really knew how to use Zoom, I could probably throw up a picture of that because I was actually looking at it today, like the caudate and that type of stuff. But this is an audio. This is an audio podcast. We're not gonna do lots of. Although we're looking pretty damn good.
I administrate for different teams, both with UAP Med and with I've got 25 people working for me at UAP Med, and they're all volunteers and they're amazing, every one of them.
You said that lovely thing about volunteers on the LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, and it's true.
He's really kind.
And then that's how you win. If they're winning, you're winning, and so you want them to win. So, you that motivation that brings them and their own skill set and everything, you just want to, like when Keith came on board and he was talking about wanting to get law horsemen engaged on UAP matters, and I said, so you want to like write a policy paper on that? And he was like, yeah. I said, do you need a working group? He said, yeah. So I gave him a working group.
He seems so nice, the Keith.
Oh, Keith's great.
He seems
really nice guy. Really nice guy. Thoughtful and intelligent and a good voice in this particular situation. So in any case, that's what I did was I pulled together a working group to support him.
Well, they all seemed really nice what I saw there.
And made it happen. And that's kind of what we can do at UAP Med. So I have whole teams of people that are engaged in different areas doing things. And I can't really talk about some of it right now, but things are happening and just kind of same batch.
Oh, that was something else I was going to ask you about, the part you can't talk about.
Oh, yeah. Feel free. Ask me about that.
Well, why can't you talk about it?
Well, mainly it's about operational security. They're just things that we're trying to get done that I would rather not talk about until we've actually moved towards them.
Fair enough.
And it's not really like professional jealousy or anything. It's more about, everybody's trying and working so hard, and we want to make sure that they get the best shot at seeing their vision hit. So we don't talk about it and let it happen. But the whole point is that there's a lot going on. We're going to roll out. We have a podcast we're rolling out shortly. Sarah Soderlund is going to be the lead on that right now. I think you probably know her, Paranormal Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's really
all these paranormal. Okay, great.
She's really good, and is in terms of actually doing really grounded work versus more what we'd all call fringe type thing.
Right, fringe.
She's very good. Very good.
She sounded very good.
And that's what I'm looking for with UAP Med is to bring in professionals. I would rather have mainstream professionals with no UAP experience and have them bring their skill set as project managers and team leads and this kind of thing so that we navigate in the real world in the mainstream as a legitimate mainstream organization, And so we're making that happen. I've got attorneys. I've got all kinds of people that are in our program that are helping us. So we have every chance of succeeding with our primary goals and objectives.
Okay. Hey, Ted.
Go ahead.
Ted, I'm going to just interject here because I mentioned earlier my music background. I work pretty well in like the folk acoustic roots rock Americana business. And that is entirely dependent upon volunteers. And you mentioned the use of volunteers in like pretty well everything you do. And I just want to give a shout out to volunteers. If there weren't volunteers who did stuff because they loved it, they were interested in it, they were fascinated in it, I will come to your folk festival and I will pick up garbage for 12 hours because I believe in what you guys are doing. And so just again, a shout out, kudos to volunteers.
Oh yeah, ditto. It's their passion. All I'm doing is kind of aiming it in general and pulling them into groups and then we get great product for it. Our papers and stuff with their names on it. Which is their doing. But it furthers our mission. You can't argue with that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And wherever
they have their heart in the right place too.
Yeah, and there's so many different things you can get behind as a volunteer, depending on where your passion is. That it's a good thing. It's like the best reason to do something. It comes from the heart. So yeah, I concur, Colin. Good call.
Okay. Eli, okay, ask more questions. I'm pretty well fading here. I'm
fading as well. Can we wrap it up possibly? I'm trying to think of what my final last best question would be.
Oh, ask something really, really good where Ted said, wow, that's a great question. He hasn't said that yet. Wow, that's the best question ever. So ask your best question.
Hang on.
she's researching this here. Like,
I am. I'm looking over my notes.
it'd be like, hey, what's your favorite color?
Shut up. um, who should we talk to next? Ken? Who do you think we should speak to next?
I am balancing between known voices and new voices. And it kind of depends on where you're going. If you have a less technical audience, or you come from you guys operating in a less technical background, you'll probably want to talk to people who are more engaging emotionally. And it might be religious folks.
Good one. Yeah, the religious folks. Yes.
Yeah, or it might you could talk about in context of UAP, right, and its effect on society and how their perspective engages on it. So I would think about them. I would think about people that are more mainstream, that aren't technical. The Diane Pasulkas,
she's fascinating. I'd love to talk to her. Yeah.
Very interesting. I don't agree with her on much of anything.
No.
And I worked with Jacques Vallée for 15 years, and I don't agree with him on much of anything either.
No.
But again, like I said, if they've been chased home by these things, we probably have something other than a pretty coffee table book about fairies and alien incursions. I'm looking for the pragmatic help. I'm not here for the adventure of it all.
You've had enough of that.
Yeah, it's not the adventure anybody thinks it is.
Right.
And it's really about trying to bring a little wisdom to this and do the right thing, versus a lot of people who are really bored and wish it would happen to them. And that's not really a good thing to ask for, in my opinion. If you want to engage with higher minds, you can do that, but I wouldn't suggest doing it with these guys.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Do you think, I feel like I might know what you're going to say, but what are your thoughts about Dr. Stephen Greer and, go out, use his protocols and
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, don't do that.
No.
And this idea of a hitchhiker effect, we look at this in two ways at UAP Med. One is that hitchhiker effect in terms of something has attached itself to you and it's following you around.
Right.
And the other one is that stress-induced psi function. So because of your stress, your psi function is up, your abilities across the board, telekinesis, telepathy, all that stuff kind of rises on the index, because you're operating at full bandwidth or a fuller bandwidth, and you're creating it.
Oh, my goodness.
There's two sides of it. Now, I talked with our witnesses, John and Jerry, and they're detecting the same things they detected at the beach with their instruments. They're detecting them over their house now, and within 1,000-foot margins. So.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. That's right. They show the security camera thing.
If you're dealing with an intelligence, why would you want to attract it?
Invite it over unless you know it better. Wait for an introduction. I don't know.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, their anxiety levels are going up.
It sounds like it.
And they should be. I would be. And it's important that we acknowledge that if you're going to go to these hot spots, if you're going to go to these places where UFOs are known to be, don't be a dummy about it. You can invite an experience in your life that you really don't want to have, and you're not necessarily. And if you're that bored with life that you would want something like that to happen to you, then there's some things you need to know before you ever stick your neck out like that. Really, it's not wise. And you've got Greer out there saying, "Oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread," and it's not. Even in a best case scenario with non-human technical intelligence, a lot can go wrong, and really bad things can happen. It's not a given that because they're nice guys that you're safe. But in a situation like ours where they don't even communicate,
right,
where we don't have any say in what they do, so we're not respected fundamentally, right? It could be a lot worse. The situation could be a lot worse than we think. And because they're so efficient, they don't need to attack us. We don't need to have a full-on frontal assault to be in danger. They do things in a different way.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. Their capacity for surveillance and social engineering. They can introduce memes into the internet. Ways of thinking. There's all kinds of games they could play. Never mind that it's almost a universal acknowledgement that they're telepathic.
Yeah.
So how do you think out how you feel about them without them knowing?
They already know what you're thinking anyway.
Yeah. Right. So again, not to fearmonger, but if you want to really look at the parameters of the situation and make a wise decision, you don't turn your mind away from.
It's better to increase your own head first. Like make
That's
sure
right.
you have more
That's
togetherness.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. You need to be able to think bigger, look at bigger picture things. I know it'd be really great to just say, "Oh hell, ET's welcome,"
Yeah.
But seriously, you really think they came across all that way?
Yeah. I mean, if they,
everything has an abiding self-interest. It doesn't mean it isn't caring or can't be caring.
Right.
Keep in mind, whatever anything would expend a huge amount of energy to do, even including, risking their devices to come up close to people, they wouldn't do it without personal interest, a personal motivation, cost energy and time to do what they do. And so they have to find a benefit in that themselves. Or why do it?
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I don't have an answer to that.
No, I don't know that any of us really do we?
Well, and for having 100 years of these exposures and more in the record, why don't we have an answer?
Well, true enough.
And what does that tell you? So I just urge caution. Go slow. We don't need a full disclosure tomorrow.
Okay. It looks like we're not going to get it anyway.
And whether or not that's intentional, it may well be in our benefit. It'll give us time to get some of the infrastructure together that we need in order to protect ourselves. Look out for vulnerable populations. And maybe formulate what we think about all of this. So hopefully we'll get the time to do that, because our ability to sense these things is getting really good. And a lot of the conversations I'm seeing in the circles I circulate in kind of have moved well beyond the idea of whether or not they're non-human intelligence. Nobody's thinking these are natural phenomena or misidentification.
No.
And nobody's thinking that they're Russian or Chinese.
Right. So, no, we know that much.
I mean, we have a history of these metallic balls that goes back well before the PRC was ever created, and now we got video of them by the DOD. So the question eventually becomes, when the other team knows we can see them, how does that change our relationship?
Right.
Will they continue hiding? And if they don't, what does that imply for us?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things to think about around all of this, and you don't want to whistle past the graveyard with this. You want to be practical and understand it and get answers to it, because you can't defend yourself or protect others without knowing what you're dealing with, and you may not need to. You may find that we're okay, but what I'm seeing doesn't say okay.
So my last thing. my last question would be like, as far as you're concerned, there's no chance that it could be the Russians or the Chinese or the Cubans or, no, it's completely off-world technology. Nobody, nobody. Yeah, we've got drones, we've got fancy stuff, we've got the internet, but this stuff is just so far beyond anything that us humans are capable of doing. That no, it's
exactly. We've been observing it a lot longer than we've had any technical capability. Back when, aircraft were flown with wires and there were no electrical instruments, this kind of thing. I've got a case from 1924 of a mail plane, a DH-4 mail plane, biplane, flying over Nevada, and they encountered a huge wingless cylinder, and they had to land the aircraft. And I don't know if the engine wasn't. I would assume the engine was the electrical, and the engine was probably the issue. And then I've got a photograph from 1985 in September by Mr. David Hastings from the window of his Cessna of a giant wingless cylinder over Nevada. And it's a pretty good picture, and it's 3 years before Photoshop came out. So, there's a repetitive quality to the phenomenon. There's a long history of it. We have over 100 years of it at NARCAP, of pilot cases going back to 1916. So the people say, well, it was the atom bomb, but we saw when we fielded a global army in 1942 with central reporting, and you see the reports, like we have a catalog of 1,300 pilot reports from the history of powered, from the beginning of the history of powered flight through 2000. Weinstein put that together. It's a technical report 4 on the NARCAP site. And you can see the curve of reports just goes vertical in 1942. So once we started getting data from other parts of the world, we became aware of something that was ongoing.
This is like, there seems to be like a real correlation between humanity getting the atomic bomb and observations from people who may like, holy crap, these guys know how to blow up a planet. I'm not big on the conspiracy theory, but certainly the U.S. government has, and all governments have tried to hide how to make an atomic bomb. But I can find that on the internet. I've got I think I saved somewhere in, like, God, if I really have to, I could probably make an atomic bomb in my basement. If I can find out how to make an atomic bomb, how come? Is there an association with this atomic secrets?
It bothers the fabric of the universe, and it goes through the fabric of, this is how I've heard it explained. So you're getting the real science. It goes through the fabric of the universe and bothers everybody else's galaxy and everything else.
I'm not certain why radiological things are of interest to them. I had heard all along rumors of observations around the Chernobyl incident. And I've heard of observations arising during other radiological releases, some well-known, some not so well-known. So in that sense, I think they take an interest in that. I think they monitor the environment pretty closely. And whenever things get really weird, they go and check it out. And same with war zones. of various kinds. They were reported in Vietnam. They were reported in Korea. They were reported during World War II. They were reported during World War I, and there were other conflicts that were hot enough that they were reported there as well. A lot of the major navies have reported them when they amassed ships, put together exercises, this kind of thing. The Chileans did. Who was it? It was the JFK. It was out of Norfolk in 1971. Had an incident involving its battle group. It was on a training exercise down to Cuba and back. There was one where who was it? It wasn't the Enterprise. I think it was the Hornet on its way to the Gulf of Tonkin in 1966. They had an incident involving them. So you hear about these things. I'm sure the Russians have had them, and the Chinese too. The USS Russell off the coast of San Diego, there a while back. That was one of the videos that was released that has official pedigree. So there's a lot of these incidents around where power concentrates, particularly military power. So when they see things sort of get together and it looks a little dicey, or it's actually a full-blown conflagration, they seem to show up.
There must be some absolutely amazing intel coming out of Gaza right now. I mean, the amount of
could well be.
No, I mean we're not going to see it, but I mean it's completely observed from.
Oh, no doubt, and that's the one thing that we learned from the brothers there off of Long Island, is that they were looking in that area because that's the edge of Whiskey 72. That's where Ryan Graves and the Navy pilots were seeing.
Right.
And so they set up camp, and Long Island has a long history of UAP incidents and observations involving Brookhaven and other types of situations there on Long Island. And they documented a lot of stuff, and I would imagine, I talked to them this last weekend, I would imagine that they concur with the idea that these things are probably ubiquitous, that they're everywhere. And if they're everywhere, then what are they doing? Well, they're monitoring. So whenever anything goes down anywhere, they're aware of it in some way or another.
Ryan Graves said that the Tic Tacs were communicating with something under the water.
That was the story. He wasn't in that incident.
Okay.
I work with Ryan at AIAA.
Okay.
He was. That was the Nimitz
right
encounter. Okay, in 2004. Ryan's happened later than that.
Oh, okay.
Involving air training over the in the operating areas out there, Whiskey 72. But I think it was Favor and Dietrich.
Okay.
That were in on that one. We've got an interview with her on UAP Med. Our YouTube channel has a lot of interviews.
Oh, well,
I don't know if you looked beyond the referrals I gave you, but there's a lot of witness interviews, a lot of interesting stuff.
Now.
Got a David Jacobs interview in there.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool. So yeah, there's a bit out there. I would imagine that we're under pretty much total surveillance, and that they have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Their watch is right now.
Well, I would imagine that just about anything that moves through here ends up in their AI or a dark pair of glittering eyes staring into a screen, one or the other. I would imagine that if it is what it looks like, they're probably human agents affiliated with them. I'm sure that there's an infiltration. Again, they don't need to, bomb us. They don't need to shoot us out of the sky or do a Godzilla through our neighborhoods. They can control the environment.
Yeah.
And that's how efficient they are, and if you don't want to be controlled at that level, then you need to be smarter than they are. more aware than they think you are, more capable than they expected. And that's going to take some time, I would imagine. If people are in agreement with me that this is not a good situation, just between you and me and whoever.
I think actually to get people to agree altogether is going to be difficult. About
unlikely.
Anything. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do well with fear.
No.
So when you talk,
you do your worst thinking if you're afraid, right?
So when you talk to them about defending themselves and making a study of how to do that, they don't want to do that either, because that means having to think about what they're afraid of. I've taught martial arts for years, and I kind of know where the wall is with who I can teach and who I can't.
Oh, wow.
Because some people just do not have that will to survive, that's able to draw the line and ball up a fist and pop it in the nose and say, don't do that.
Right.
It's some people just aren't made for that. They're just not. Others can come around to it. They'll defend their families and defend their own if you show them how they want to. And those are the kind of mindsets you need. You need people that are willing to say, okay, this is not okay. All right, this is okay. This is okay. This is not okay. We said no. We meant no, and then learn how to engage, because
that's a very good one. Yes.
Yeah, it's complex. It'd be great if you could just talk them out of it, but I don't think that's how it works.
Likely not, I guess.
Yeah, if you just want to be a realist about it, it doesn't look that way. But again, like I said,
we have to be united as little earthlings somehow. We have to feel collected.
We do, and it concerns me because think of it.
Well, we're warring with each other, so we can't. But
well, we've got millions of sociopathic politicians and military people and oligarchs and corporations, and you introduce ET tech into that environment, and what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think.
And how much unity can you find when everybody's trying to be the next Kardashian or the next Trump, House of Saud? I think it's a flaw in our society. It's almost an original sin. It's a delusion and desire for delusion, and it could really be our undoing in the face of this kind of challenge. People have to get real serious and get real. And I think we can do it with not much of the population. The Bolsheviks won the Russian Revolution with less than 2% of the population, so if you had a determined insurgency, that was grounded and thoughtful, it might be able to carry it off. But there's so much we don't know about them right now. And until we do, if I was a general and this was on my table and I knew anything about it all, I wouldn't want to talk about it.
Right. Right.
If I was charged with defending people, and keeping the world safe, I wouldn't want to talk about it. I don't fault these people at all.
Okay, that's a good thing to put out there.
Yeah. And to the limit that if anything I'm doing or have done is not good, for our future, then I'm the last person to stand in the way of protecting us. I'm not here to second guess people who know more. I've just been trying to learn because I've had the exposures myself, and I've watched people suffer because of them.
Right.
And so the more we can learn, the more we can move information in a safe and sane way, I'm all for it. As long as it doesn't jeopardize our ability to protect ourselves. There's some things we probably don't need to know.
I think that's a really good spot to leave it at. Should we leave it there? Is that good?
Ask our guest. I'm totally fine. I've just been mostly an auditor here.
How do you feel about this, Ted? Should we keep talking? Is there anything more you feel?
I think we've covered it pretty much, as far as generalities go. If you wanted to later, if there was something specific that came up, I'm sure we could get, the time.
You think we could do it again maybe later in the future?
Yeah. So that I don't have a problem with that. And keep an eye on our space, watch what we're doing. We're dealing with legislators and so on. We have pretty high level engagement, and I don't talk about it because it's not ufology.
Right.
Ufology, I don't. That's the choir I don't need to preach to.
Okay, exactly.
So my focus is on getting the word in the other direction. So if you don't hear about us, it doesn't mean we're not active. Check in. So. And Sarah, I have a number of people in my group that are actually people you might want to talk to at some point.
Possibly Sarah. So I'm going to just
possibly Sarah. Courtney Marcassani. She lives here in Alaska, actually. Courtney, but she works with us at UAP Med doing our legislative outreach. So she has a lot of understanding around policy and what's going on and what's being talked about and who's on our side and who isn't, and all of that. Like I said, she's our lead for legislative outreach. I depend on her in a big way. So she's another one. Dr. Ron Westrom. If you Google him, he's very, very interesting. And
Westrom?
Westrom. R-U-M.
Oh, M.
Yeah, as in Mary.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's a sociologist. He's done a lot of mainstream work, but he's also been involved with UFO matters since the 50s from a sociological perspective. So he talks about the density of abduction phenomena, how many people have actually been encountering this, and it's a lot more than you think. And if you think about it, if the word is right that say a dozen alien ships crashed, okay, well, we have it in U.S. aviation, commercial aviation. We haven't had a fatal commercial crash since 2009. Okay.
Really? Oh, okay.
Well, to me, how come these transdimensional beings who have come, who have evolved billions of years before us, come to Earth and crash in Roswell? I mean,
well, this is my point.
To me, that's one of the like.
No, well, this is my point, though. How many airline flights do you have before one crashes? How many airline?
Okay.
How many UFO crashes do you have before one crashes, or a dozen of them crash? And what does that mean as far as how many people are exposed to these things? How busy are they? How active is it? You understand? It's that whole scope argument, of their implication that come from this. If there's just a dozen crashed UFOs, then there's a ridiculous amount of activity because they don't crash. They have high standards of operating efficiency, right? So for one to crash, how many missions would they fly? And
are we crashing them? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying
they're
is that how busy they are. Do you understand how busy they would have to be in order for one of them to crash?
Yeah.
How many missions they would fly?
Oh my gosh!
Until one of them failed, and then how many missions would they fly for a dozen of them to fail? Okay, it implies a dense activity, right? It means they're busy, and that could explain why the suspicion is a lot more people have been exposed to them than we think.
Right.
They have the capacity to be invisible. Okay, they can cloak, right? They can drop out of our ability to see them. How busy are they? And what are they using that for? Why is that important? Why is a lot of the UFOs that we're learning about now only visible in infrared? They're not visible in the visual spectrum. Why? I mean, simply speaking, they just don't want us to see them, and that could be a cover for all kinds of reasons, so just things to think about in all of this, whenever, if you hear about a UFO crash, you can bet there's been a terrific amount of activity leading to one, because like Colin points out, they're efficient. They don't fail.
Right.
It takes unique circumstances for that to happen. They had one up in Shag Harbor up in Canada, and it crashed in the water, and another one joined it, and they repaired and then they got up and flew away. All of it in the presence of Canadian Navy ships. That's
why didn't
Harbor.
you know about this one, Colin?
Well, you know what? I think those people, Doucette and her family, the folks that are running the Shag Harbor events every year, would be good interviewees.
Okay, Shag Harbor.
And it would be local people, right? And I spoke to them. It was the best crowd I'd ever had, 50 lobstermen, right? Hanging out. Just I'm from Montana, right? So farmers, same kind of thing. People are just real and decent, and they spent their $50 to hang out, and I had a really good time not being technical Ted. It was really good, and I think that's a significant incident, and it shows us a little bit about the other team, and we learn a little bit about how active they are again.
Right.
It went clunk. They don't do that very often.
Wow.
Well, to me, Shag Harbor sounds like a Stan Rogers tune. Ted,
Yeah.
I don't know whether you ever heard of Stan Rogers, a wonderful Canadian. He actually he died in extricating people from a plane crash in Detroit, I believe. East Coast. Well, actually, I think he was born in Hamilton, but he was considered an East Coast singer-songwriter, and he had songs like "The Mary Ellen Carter" and a wonderful guy. If you don't know him, check him out. But like Shag Harbor sounds exactly like a Stan Rogers tune.
It certainly has a lot of potential, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, we'll look at that. I know his brother Garnet Rogers, and Garnet would be probably more than willing to write a song about Shag Harbor.
So I think the contact, you guys get on Facebook at all?
Yeah, I do. I'm a big
Heather Doucetti.
Oh, Heather Doucetti?
Yeah.
With an I?
Doucette. Doucetti. Doucette, I guess.
Okay.
And she would be a contact. And if you need to, I'm on Facebook as well. Just
friend
me, and I can link you out.
Oh, bless. Oh, well, my proper name is Elizabeth Burt. Well, I guess you know that. God almighty.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, I will Facebook you. We'll both Facebook.
Okay. It's Ted Rowe, and I've got on my profile picture. There's me swimming with some dolphins. I taught free diving in Hawaii, so I have a lot of dolphin photography and stuff, and breath hold diving. So. I use those pictures a lot.
I think we're going to try to come to Hawaii at some point, Ted.
Well, you should.
You should have told us that. But
Take care, gang.
Take care, Dad.